On today's Open Ears, Teresa Carreño. Teresa Carreño was a virtuosic pianist, soprano, composer, and conductor from Venezuela. She's known as the Valkyrie and the Lioness of the piano. She was born on December 22, 1853, in Caracas, Venezuela. Her father was an amateur pianist and taught her piano as a child. By the age of 6, she was writing short piano compositions, and by 8, she was considered a child prodigy, having written 13 works. In 1862, the family relocated to New York, where Carreño made her public debut and started touring through the United States and Cuba. That same year, she met and studied with American composer and pianist Louis Moreau Gottschalk, who would become one of the most important influences in her early life. She performed for President Lincoln and his family at the White House when she was just 9. But at first, she refused to play because the grand piano in the White House was out of tune and in bad condition. President Lincoln coaxed her to play, and she played several works with improvised variations. And by 1866, Carreño and her family moved to Paris, where she met and was admired by Liszt, Berlioz, among others. This would be her most prolific time as a composer, publishing over 40 compositions. In 1867, opera composer Gioacchino Rossini discovered Carreño's voice and gave her singing lessons. This drove her to explore her talent as a mezzo-soprano. Her first marriage to violinist Émile Souret ended in divorce, and she returned to the United States in 1877. 3 years later, she married an opera singer, Giovanni Tagliapietra, and they formed the Carreño Donaldi Concert Company. In 1885, she returned to Caracas and premiered Himno a Bolívar in honor of the liberator, Simón Bolívar. She was welcomed as a national hero. However, plans to establish an opera company there were unsuccessful because of political and social unrest. This would be the last time she visited Venezuela. In July of 1889, she moved to Germany, separated from Tagliapietra, and performed across Europe and Russia. 3 years later, she met Scottish-born German pianist and composer Eugen d'Albert, who became her third husband. D'Albert influenced her performances and musical style. Yet, despite its significance, the marriage only lasted 2 years. For the next several years, she made Germany her home and performed across Europe and the United States. A critic and enthusiast described her playing as the delicate feeling of Bellini, the dramatic energy of Verdi, the tender expression of Mendelssohn, and the facile improvisation of Beethoven. In 1900, her former brother-in-law Arturo Tagliapietra joined her in Germany to become her assistant and manager. Eventually, the two would marry. In 1916, when World War I broke out, she moved back to New York and played for another American president, Woodrow Wilson. That same year, she started an American tour. But her life as an international touring artist was taking a toll on her, and her health was rapidly deteriorating. At 63, she gave her last performance in Havana, Cuba. And shortly after, Teresa Carreño died in New York on June 12, 1917. Her ashes were taken to Caracas in 1938, and in 1977, they were laid to rest at the Panteón Nacional. In 1983, the Teresa Carreño Cultural Center opened its doors in Caracas. It's the second largest theater in South America. Teresa Carreño composed more than 70 works and has inspired generations of pianists, composers, and conductors worldwide.